Hello, YouTube. Welcome to She Speaks Bravo with Emily Hanks. If you couldn't tell, I'm Emily. This is Donny. Hi,
Hello.
Donny.
Hi.
Donny is here from many a podcast, actually. Donny, tell them all the many podcasts you're from.
Yeah, sure. Well, I know you introduced me like that, but right now I think it's just one. So I'll plug one. And if you find me later and I have another podcast, great. That's a bonus for you. But but right now I am the co-host of I Am the Cute One, a nostalgia podcast. And I host that with Chelsea of Oh No Chels on Instagram.
You at one point were doing a Housewives podcast and also a Big Brother podcast.
Yes. Oh, so that I'll be back on July 7th. I think the new season of Big Brother starts. So I will be back for that. Housewives podcast is on hiatus right now.
I don't blame you. And that is with Kendrick, who was just on the channel last night doing Atlanta.
Oh, perfect. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. Today we're talking about real world New Orleans, and who better than with Donny, because you were the one who alerted me that it was even coming out. You posted about the trailer. The trailer was incredible.
It was. You just saying the word trailer gave me chills right now. But
the way they used the song,
so good. It was very like, in what is his name right now? It's too early in the morning. I can't think. Like the guy that wrote, Jordan Peele. You know how he uses like creepy music? They almost did it like that. I loved it. It was hauntingly beautiful.
For the viewers at home, to give you a time frame of what it's 6 a.m. my time and 9 a.m. Donny's time. This is the dedication we have to making this damn recap. Okay,
you look great for 6 a.m.
That's why I have sunglasses on. I'm trying to reserve, because I'm also doing true crime recaps, and I'm trying to reserve the sunglasses for my like true crime detective look. But
okay.
There's no way I could have put on any sort of eye make. I went to put on concealer and I was like, there's kind of no reason to even try to conceal right now. I put on a little concealer on my right eye and it just did nothing. My eyes were like, bitch, not yet.
I thought I looked okay for being how I just woke up like 15 minutes ago. I thought I looked okay until I just looked at myself right now. I was like, no, my eyes are pretty glassy. Pretty glassy.
And I'm really not just saying this. You have amazing skin.
Thank you.
I always think this when you do your Instagram stuff. Is it filters you use? I feel like you don't.
I don't use filters. I have been lucky enough, knock on wood. I have psoriasis, so like it affects me elsewhere on my body with like patches of skin, but my face, I never even, like growing up, I never even had a pimple.
Okay, well, we're gonna move on.
But I have psoriasis. Feel bad for me.
Oh no. Okay, so real quick, guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. I promise I won't do that too much because I just hate when people do that. So anyway, today we're going to do episodes 1 and 2.
Perfect.
Okay. First thing I forgot about when they started this episode was the huge cattle casting call that they used to do back in the day for Real World. I forgot it was like the big American Idol line around the block because reality TV was such a new concept.
Yes.
And they didn't even really pay you.
No, I was reading an interview with Melissa and she said like, they really threw money at them now to come back for this. But the first season, I think they made
like $5,000.
Yeah, something ridiculous.
They were there for a long time.
Yeah. And I think even 5,000 is too much. I know they were paid from the job, but like as far as being on the show, I really don't think it was anything at all.
I mean, and it's because you didn't know what reality TV would do to you back then. You didn't know that it would kind of ruin your life.
Yeah.
And so you thought fame would be fun. And then you're like, oh, wait, guys, fame isn't fun.
Truly. And for so many of them this season, and New Orleans is my favorite Real World season of all time. But so many of them, you can tell that it truly ruined their lives. I think the only ones that came out like mentally unscathed is just Melissa. Everybody else is pretty shaken up.
And what's her name? Is it Kelley?
I know this is episode 1 and 2. I thought she was fine until one of the more recent episodes.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. The one who came out truly the most damage is Danny.
Yes.
So he has put on some miles, and when they first show his face, I was kind of like, who is that?
Yeah.
And then they showed a flashback and I was like, oh
yeah.
And I don't mean to be shady because he's gone through a lot and he really suffered. He carried a lot of like heavy stuff on his shoulders. But my God, he was gorgeous.
He was. Him and David, now Tokyo, in their original season, like, Eiffel Tower me, please, because they were two of the hottest reality TV people I've ever seen, I think.
Agreed. And not so much now.
No.
You know, just I'm just going to keep it real. I mean, like, this is going to be kind of surface because that's sort of what I do. Yeah. So I forgot that Danny was as hot as he was, because now Danny is just he's really going through it still. Like, he's doing his best. He's like in survival mode still. Yes,
he literally lives in a cabin in the woods and he looks like it.
I am shocked that he agreed to do this, but they did get paid. I was listening to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, the one with Jamie Stein and Ryan Bailey, and they said that they made about like $200,000 each.
Oh wow.
To do this. It's a 2-week gig. They had to quarantine right before. So I was like, yeah, okay. That would get anyone out of. They're like, yes, I will do it for that. They had to do. I mean, you have to pay them enough money to get them to come out of hiding.
Of course. Yeah. Especially because this is still so early into the real. I feel like once we start bringing the cast back from like Vegas and forward, those are the people that are fame hungry and will like do it just to be on TV again. But these people, show me the money.
Show me the damn money. I love Tokyo. They really are having a hard time grasping that name change. But Melissa really, she follows you.
She does.
We need to let everyone know that.
That gave me the chills as well. That was like one of the best days of my life when she followed me. She truly is. Melissa is, I can't talk about her enough. She is top tier reality TV for me. Like, if I made Mount Rushmore of reality TV, she would be one of 4. It would be her, Nene Leakes, Tiffany Pollard, and Nicole Richie. Like, those are my reality TV icons. So when Melissa followed me, I about dropped dead.
Did you cry?
I did. I did.
I don't blame you. She, like, the way everything that comes out of her mouth is just, it's just iconic. She's got such a grasp on herself and on reality and on what's right and what's wrong. And when they find out about Tokyo's name change, she says, I don't be asking questions, because you're not supposed to ask those questions these days. Someone tells you what their name is, that's what their name is. We're reintroduced to Julie. Now, here's the thing about Julie. I forgot, because I just kind of like blocked all my memories of Julie out of my head. I forgot about how she was on the challenge.
Me too.
And I forgot how remember when she was doing that zip lining challenge with Veronica and was trying to take her safety harness off? Do you remember that? Wasn't she trying to like kill her by doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I believe so. I don't know what else she could have thought she was doing.
I still, like, my friend Pia reminded me of that and like sent me the clip, and I'm like, oh, okay, I still can't like, she was trying to take her one and only form of safety off. We were witnessing attempted murder. Right?
Yeah, and yet we brought her back.
Like, MTV is so problematic. When they did the challenge, they let like there's articles that you guys should Google, like look up the challenge problematic and you will find a lot. But I think when I saw that clip again, I was like, this is why I had to block out Julie from my memory, because it was like she's a lot. So
Yeah.
right away when she comes into the house and starts hugging Danny and
Oh
apologizing,
my God.
it was so manipulative, and he reads right through it. He's like,
Yes.
this is not, like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, this isn't the first thing you say to me when you come in front of everybody.
Yeah.
But
I was
Melissa,
so good. So it was like a 1-2 punch, because first Danny's like, we'll talk about it later. And then Melissa just says, hi.
doesn't her body language is like, if you even think of coming over and hugging me.
It's so good. And on on Instagram, like in real time, when the cast talks about the show, Melissa, Danny, and Kelley talk about how much they love each other, how they're excited they like refound one another through the show. And then whenever they talk about Julie, they just call her that woman. Like they don't even refer to her by name.
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with
So
that.
good.
The amount of times they call Tokyo David and he goes, Tokyo, 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 Tokyo. I'm like, you had to know. You had to know.
It's so interesting watching Tokyo, because he truly is a different person than what he was in Real World New Orleans. I feel like they didn't even bring back the same person.
Right? Right. But it also like tracks, because if you can't maintain, because you're not going to be young and hot forever. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of his whole thing.
Yeah.
And, or at least half of it. And when his music career didn't take off, and then, you know, he's still like a broke guy, mm-hmm. and now he's not as hot. It's like, well, what persona are you going to take on now?
Yeah.
And then when later, when we like see where he was living, I was like, oh my God, it's dark. They get this like package of Melissa and Julie's friendship. And I love Melissa savagely like denies ever hanging out with Julie when they were in LA, which makes Julie like storm off. She's like, how could she deny like ever hanging out with me? Like, how can she? And Melissa's like, I'm sorry, I don't ever remember hanging out with you in LA. Like, I just don't. And she storms off. Melissa is just Melissa is a boundaries queen. Mm-hmm. She's like, this isn't going to happen.
She really is. Watching her and Danny to an extent, watching them navigate this show makes me want to like change my life and how I let people interact with me.
I'm like, oh, this is how you do that.
Yeah, this is like a self-help tutorial. Seriously. It
really is. Like, if you have a toxic friend, watch this to see how you handle it.
Yes. Yeah.
So when Julie comes back down, they're like, bitch, here's what happened. And so first Melissa's trying to explain it and explain the whole like sabotage with jobs, because they were all doing tours of colleges. And Julie's like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. And Danny's like, no. Like, because Julie's doing the ultimate toxic thing where she's like, why don't you just skip the lie, Melissa, and say you just don't like me?
Yeah.
Which is so classic, like victim toxic white person thing to do. It's like, you know what? So Danny goes, hold on. It happened to me too. So don't play this game. But like Danny's letter was that he's a bad homosexual. So she starts sobbing. She's like, like that kind of crying. But they just stare. They're like, we feel nothing for you, bitch.
Yeah. Because she truly tried to not ruin these people's lives, but like come for their money when they were young and this was their number one source of income. And now, I don't know, she rewrote the narrative in her head, or she didn't think it was as big of a deal. I don't know what she thought, but these people are still clearly holding on to something. And not even that. I think they just wrote her off and truly thought they would never have to see her again. And we're fine with that. And now that we are forced to talk about it, we're going to talk about it. And she doesn't want any part of that.
That's exactly it. They're like, we didn't think we'd ever see you again, but now that we're here, you have to at least own up to it. Because we're not going to play this weird game of like, you didn't do anything. And then Melissa has one of the best lines in television. She says, you think because you're crying all throughout, and this word I've never heard before, and obfuscating details, that I'm going to look crazy. See, that's what we ain't going to do. I had to put captions on to be like, what is this word? Obfuscating. Melissa did that out.
Truly, Melissa's vocabulary is so I don't even have a word for her vocabulary because it is so godlike. And she knows it because after every episode, she posts on Instagram like a dictionary screen cap of a word she used that episode.
And say like, I know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it's a word of the day.
Yeah.
And I think that was like, I think Jamie Stein posted it in his stories. Like, this is how you understand your boundaries. Because like Julie thought she was going to pull them all in with her tears. And they were going to be like, oh, look how sad she is. She feels so bad. They were like, no, we're not going to look crazy because you feel sad. And you could tell the people that weren't involved in the whole actual drama were like, oh, look, she's sad, guys. They're like, we don't care.
Yeah.
She did it. So she can answer to it. Then she says, oh God, brilliant, like brilliant. Melissa says, look, I'm not holding a grudge. I set a boundary, but those actions were done against marginalized people, a gay person and a woman of color. Oh, Julie, what you got now?
Nothing. She has nothing, and she'll continue to have nothing. And it's so crazy how emotionally stunted Julie is. Like, she truly is. How Danny and Tokyo are very different people than when we saw them last. Julie, I feel like we just froze her the day she left the real world or the challenge, I guess. And then like de-thawed her right before this because she has done no growing at all.
None. And then she's like, well, I can't apologize because I've never seen the letter. You're gonna play that?
Yeah, hearing the rest of the house, I think it was Tokyo and Matt, try to let her know why that was not okay to say was alarming. Like, why don't you understand this?
And it was weird because Tokyo like didn't, because she like storms off. She's like, nothing I say is gonna matter. She's like a child. True. So Tokyo like is somehow explaining it, but to be honest, I don't even know what he explained that was in any way needing to be explained, but somehow she's completely faking it. But somehow she's like, what you're saying makes sense. I just need to take ownership. I'm like, he actually didn't say anything. This was all an act. And now you're pretending like someone said something that makes you feel like, okay, so it doesn't even matter if I know it happened or did it. It's just, I need to at least own up to it. It's like, what?
Yeah. I think that when it was the two victims of it, I think that she was fine because they were the angry ones and I'm the one crying. But now that there are people like actively choosing their side, I think she was like, oh, now I have to pretend you lit up my brain for a second.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah.
Because he was coming from a place of explaining it. So she wasn't in trouble with Tokyo. So she could play the like, oh, you're really enlightening me. Wow, look at me taking in new information and being enlightened. Ew.
She's so manipulative. God. She's so gross.
I hate her so much.
Me too.
But then the shot of her like tiptoeing into Melissa's room. Like, I'm like, okay, you're so overdoing
Oh
it.
yeah.
I mean, like, Melissa. And that's the end of the first episode, but they actually really like, they make it seem like something big is going to happen. But then when the second episode starts, all that happens is Melissa goes, maybe tomorrow. That's it. She's like, okay. Thank you. But so she's not done. She goes downstairs. Danny is so wasted at this point. So when Julie comes out, Danny's like, Julie, come out here. I'm like, oh, he is wasted. And they give a flashback to how homophobic she was back in the OG days. And I forgot. I really had forgotten.
I forgot it was as bad as this package showed us. I knew that she was like Mormon and that her beliefs were very similar to Matt's in terms of like what she believed, but I forgot some of the things she actually said.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, like you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Danny's wasted. So he's just like one eye shut. He's like, this is fine. Everything's fine. We're totally fine. But then Matt creeps me out like nobody's business. He comes out of nowhere. He's not even a part of it. And he goes, I'm a dad. This has got to end in a hug. Okay. No, it doesn't.
No.
Don't force people to touch each other. Okay. They're adults. They can handle it how they want to handle it. But thankfully, Danny's drunk. He's like, yeah, all right, I'll give you a hug. Matt really creeps me out. And we see more and more of him being an utter.
He's so creepy. He looks exactly the way he looked in 2000. But unfortunately for him, that was never anything that looked good. Yep. like if you made anyone else in the cast make them look exactly the way they did in 2000, wonderful. That's great for you. He probably should have aged a little bit because this is nothing that nobody wants to see. He is
agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of like he looks like Tales from the Crypt a little bit.
Yes. And how Spencer Pratt had like flesh color beard. That's what color Matt's hair is. Yes. Like it's like truly like Bart Simpson. Like his skin just blends into his hair.
Oh my God. We need to do a side by side of that. You need to take that. You need to make that immediately when we finish this. Tokyo's YouTube cooking channel.
I tried to find it. It's kind of iconic.
I mean, like, what a niche thing.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy? I think if he would have thought about it, I don't know what other way to say this. When he was hot, if he would have done that shirtless and singing and cooking, I think he would have blown up and like been too famous to come on the show now. But unfortunately, he waited until his body started to change and he got a little older. And now it just looks a little weird.
You're right. Because if he was doing that shirtless, we wouldn't care.
Yeah, no.
And then he would have had like a producer producing it with like high quality cameras. But now it just looks.
Yeah.
Because then we see what he was living in.
Right. Yes. There's an Instagram account I follow and it's just a man cooking with no shirt. Sometimes he has a shirt on, usually not. And the way he angles the camera, it's literally just like his junk plopped on the side of the table while he like cuts up cucumbers or onions or whatever. And I watch it religiously. I don't know.
Is he a black guy?
No, he's not. He's like maybe Armenian. Like there's a darkness to him, but it's still white skin. But there's
a couple accounts like that because I follow a black guy like that.
Oh, okay. We'll switch after.
We'll switch. Yeah, I'll send you and you send me because I enjoy that content as well.
Yes, but David could have been one, but he's not. He's not.
I mean, it's not too late if he wants to. If he wants to hit the gym and get it together.
Yeah, and just like take a trimmer to just above the lip, just right where the lip line is. Just maybe shave that.
Yeah. Because where he's living now is like, you know, this all is so on brand for where he was. Like he was the weird guy that like took his art too serious, you know, like no one gets it. That's just my thing. And it makes him weird and like kind of alienate people. So, you know, now he's the guy that goes and collects weird art in thrift stores and basically looks like a little hoarder.
Yeah.
And lives in a tiny little place that is like a hoarder den. I'm like, yeah, this kind of tracks, you know, because I remember going to school in college. I remember going to school with people who were like in drama class with me, and they were always like too into it. And like their process was really alienating to the rest of us. And I was like, but you're not even really good at acting. You're just being like an artist for the sake of being an artist and like alienating everyone. And you're actually probably dealing with a mental health crisis. And so David was like in that place when he was first doing Real World. Like he alienated the whole house. Everyone hated him. And now look at where he is now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So this all tracks. So he had to humble himself. And he said, yes, I will take $200,000 right now.
And I'm glad he did.
Me too. Because he was probably so terrified. But of course, I mean, so much time has gone by. They're like, hi, hugs, whatever happened. Like that was so long ago.
Especially because David was, I don't know, just like, it was just him. Like nobody liked him, but he never really did anything too damning, where Julie, like these people had vendettas against her, and that was the difference here. So I think David came in, and because he is clearly a very different person, like he has a different name, he looks nothing the same as what the person they lived with in the year 2000, like I think it's a lot easier for them to accept him and say like, oh hey Tokyo, nice to meet you, basically. Where Julie, they were like, no, you're still the same bitch we dealt with in the year 2000
with her scary yoga pants.
Oh my god,
there that alone was like Mayday, like we have an emergency right there. So we get the package for Danny, which is so heavy, and right away Danny's like, do we need to do this on a day I'm so hungover? I'm like, I knew he was wasted last night. And I cannot get over how fine his ass was. Good God, he was hot.
So hot.
This was really eye-opening because it's crazy that only 20 years ago, Paul could have been arrested just for being gay in the military. Only 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's wild. Kelley has clearly been so close with Danny. So like after the package, she was such a good like source of strength for him. I was like, oh, I love this. She was like, you can take a breath and share what you want to share. You can take a breath and share what you want to share. And I was like, oh, listen to her.
Yeah.
And he does. And he explains that he didn't just have PTSD, he had CPTSD, complex CPT, which is continual event that threatens you and hardwires your brain. Because at the grocery store, they had to pretend they didn't even know each other because he was worried that the military was going to come and like get them, and like being famous. It was like everyone knew them. So there was a target on their backs. And oh my God, like you did all this just because you wanted to go in the real world.
Right.
And like, Paul, why did you come meet him? It just was like, what in the hell, guys? Was it worth it?
And that, nobody is ever going to understand why someone else does what they do. But like Paul, I guess, and Danny to an extent chose reality TV over like their own happiness and love. And like we know they weren't paid for it back then. If we're dishing Kardashian money and say like, you want to ruin your life and maybe like be arrested, I'll think about it. If you give me $1 million for an episode, I'll think about it. But like for $5,000 for my whole 6 months, no, it's not worth it. And Paul didn't get that money, Danny did.
It's like, I don't understand what the need for it was. Like you could have gone and met him off camera. You know?
I agree.
He never had to be anywhere near it. You didn't have to put pictures of him up.
I think exactly. And I think for whatever reason, Danny felt like he had to do it is why it stuck with him so long now. Because my husband watching this, like, he's almost mad watching the Danny scenes because he was like, Danny keeps talking like he was a role model and like this beacon of hope for gays everywhere, whatever. And he was like, but I never looked at him like that. He was like, I thought he was hot in the 2000s and he had a boyfriend that he couldn't show, but like that was it. I never thought about him again after that. So for this to like haunt Danny and stick with Danny his whole life, I think that and I'm not downplaying what happened. Like, I do know that Paul could have been arrested and that people were stalking them, whatever. But as far as like this icon that he thought he was for, like, I don't know what, not sort, what am I saying? Like, I don't know who he thought he was the spokesperson for. Like, it's a very specific thing.
Yeah, because he's talking about all these people that were telling him that, like, because of you I came out, and because of you, so like he stayed in this really fucked up relationship because he thought that everyone wanted them to be together,
right?
And I think obviously now he's like, that wasn't a good choice, and so like you're saying, he's now like, what the fuck, why was I doing that, like in hindsight? And this man is barely surviving at this point. And we see that. Yeah,
it's hard. So I think hard. Danny is the hardest one for me to watch.
Me too. Yeah. Me too. And that's saying a lot because you got Julie there, but Julie you just know is a mess. But Danny looks so troubled.
Yes. And this is maybe fucked up of me, but Julie I don't care about. If I never hear from her again, but Danny, like, there is a kindness and a softness to him, and I do want to like protect him and I want him to be protected.
Yeah.
So to see that like something still isn't doing that for him and he is still like on an emotional seesaw, it's hard to watch.
It is.
Yeah.
Speaking of Julie, she tries to get Tokyo to shower with her. Girl.
Insane.
Girl, she's like, what? Oh God. It's so like, it makes me want to fucking like, Tokyo handled it really well.
He did.
He just kept saying, no, that's okay. And I can't.
I just want to give Tokyo a hug for having to share a room with her. Like, out of all of I would have slept on the front steps before I shared a room with
Julie. Julie goes and makes Melissa coffee and they talk. And Melissa then in her confessional is like, I hear Julie's apology. They kind of make it like the scene itself has this music that's like kind of sweet. Like they're like, oh, it's just cute. And then they cut really abruptly to Melissa in her confessional. Like, yeah, I hear her apology. Forgiving her and becoming friends with her are different. Like they're like, no, let's not be. Don't think for 1 second that Melissa is thinking about it. So then we're going to end this episode with drag night. At least the beginning. Well, no, at drag night. So Mac doesn't go because he's going to FaceTime his wife. I just, thank God, don't go.
Yeah. God, I hate him.
God, I hate him. Kelley can't go because she's working on her book. Fine. All right. So they get there and there's this local who knows Danny. And speaking of people who were like, because of you, he's like, wow, because of you, I came out. And so this clearly must have been happening enough to Danny to where he was like, oh my God, I'm an icon on some level. But again, how shitty to be an icon and broke.
Right.
Like at least on like Housewives or Bravo, like you get a paycheck, but like to be like, great. Do you have any money?
Yeah. And like this was before. I just wish that these people could have done it 10 years later, because even if this was like the time of like Venmo or anything, I think people would have like voluntarily sent it. But to just like send him literal handwritten letters, just go somewhere else with that. Put a check in there.
And this is before like really, I mean, I guess they had like some endorsement deals here and there, but like this is even before social
Julie
media.
got them canceled.
Exactly. And like social media now you can get like ads and stuff sent to you, but like that didn't happen back then. There wasn't that. So they were like, great, thanks. I live in a shack. So now Julie's getting wasted and she's becoming that girl that won't drink water. You know, she's like, they're like, here, drink water. She's like, no. And that is the most like manipulative, defiant, like when you won't drink water, it's like all adults who are told, oh shit, I should drink water. It's like, yeah, I should because I've been drinking. Like if someone's like, drink water, it's like, good call. I should drink water because we're adults. And if someone's reminding you, like you've been doing shots, here's water, you're like, fuck, good point.
Yeah.
If you're not, you're ready to start a fight. Like you're doing this on purpose. And Melissa is just, she's handling it so well, but I guess they must all have to stay together. But I would, because I would have left. I would have been like, fuck all of you. I'm calling an Uber.
Yeah.
So they realize they have to leave. Melissa goes, I had requested back that ass up and it hadn't come on yet. So I'm a little pissed that I have to leave, but I know why. I know why we have to go. So now Julie has she's thrown herself on the floor of like the middle of the dance floor right in front of the stage. And it's like, I love this drag queen. And I cannot, Jamie is kind of trying to grab her. And then Tokyo just gets so frustrated, picks her up. And now she is like, put me down, and throws herself on the ground. And now she's on the ground. Security is like, get out. I wanted security to lift her up and I wanted security grab her.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't, because security was verbally agreeing, yeah, you guys have to go. But they saw, I don't know why security didn't help more than they did.
Is that are they not allowed?
Maybe.
And maybe especially were there.
Yeah, I was gonna say
they're like, we can't touch her.
Yeah.
They probably were. They were like, it's a woman, it's a white woman. They were like, we know better. And Julie's like, what's the problem? What is the problem? And this is where I realized Danny was also a problem, because Danny's fully unaware of what's going on and he thinks that they're having a great time. So he's like, we're staying. And it is annoyed by Tokyo trying to get them out. And so he is trying to go back in and they're like, no. And so it ends with Julie trying to go run back inside.
Yeah. And I think that's where you're right, that they do have to stay together, because I think if this was a normal occasion, they would have said okay, Danny, stay.
Keep her.
We have to take Julie. No, I think that they knew Julie had to go, but you can stay here and flirt with that black man in the corner, because that is what he was doing.
Totally.
I saw as soon as that man spoke to Danny in the beginning, I was like, I told my husband, I said, I think they're gonna go home together. And then he was like, no. And all of the action was about Julie and Tokyo, whatever. But every time they showed Danny in the back, he was always still talking to that man.
That's why he was so upset. He's like, we are hanging out here. He was just total, and he's again wasted, and he's like, Julie's fine.
Yeah.
He was fully unaware. All right, well, that brings us to the end of episode 2. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much, Donny.
Of course, anytime.
All right, guys, bye.
Bye.